How urgent is year one success for Mark Pope and his staff? Well, I really think it depends on how you define success for the Wildcats this season.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be asking and answering the question, how urgent is year one success for Mark Pope and the Kentucky Wildcats? I really think it depends on how you define it, and there are also some things that are kind of maybe adding on to the urgency for Mark Pope to succeed in year one. Thank you so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you are watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. And if you are listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can make every moment more, and as playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. We have a year one head coach with a ton of new faces, just a revitalization of the program, it feels like, over these last several months with Mark Pope and company stepping in, changing a bunch of different things, adding a ton of new guys, obviously, out of necessity. And there's been some conversation as to, what's Kentucky going to do in year one? What is Mark Pope going to put out on the floor during his first season in Lexington? And there's been I think a wide variety of projections. Some people, like John Rothstein, thinks that Kentucky is going to be middle of the pack or lower in the SEC. He has the Wildcats finishing 9th in the conference. If you want to go check my thoughts out on that, we did that on the most recent episode on the channel. 9th in the SEC. You'll see some places. You'll also see some people like myself, who I think Kentucky right now is one of the top 4 teams in this conference. I don't think a ton is going to change as far as Kentucky's ability to succeed in the regular season, at least it better not, which we'll dive into obviously further on in this episode. But how urgent is year one success for Kentucky? Well, I think that there are a couple of sides to this coin before we even begin to approach it. First of all, like I was just mentioning, there's so much new here, and there are so many different wild takes up and down the board as to where Kentucky's going to end up finishing. But as of right now, I think it's perfectly fine to say we don't know what Kentucky basketball is going to be. We don't truly know. Now, we have ideas. We can look at what Kentucky's doing on paper, and we can look at what they're telling us right now and what they're showing us through the media, and we can kind of make some general assumptions as to what Kentucky basketball will sort of look like as a product. But I think right now, it's okay to say, until we see this team step out onto the court and play a real game against a real opponent with real stakes, we don't know what this team is truly going to look like. But, again, like I said, I think maybe some of the urgency with year one success is maybe it's starting to, the things that this program are trying to tell us are adding on to the fact that we have to talk about this today. There are ways to send a message to a fan base, to a community, to recruits, to your team, and a lot of it has to do with what you say and what you put on social media. Again, the question, how urgent is year one success for Mark Pope? Well, let's start with what's being communicated to the fan base, and then we'll kind of set the bar for expectations of success. This team, from the jump, has said that they're going to make a run at national title number 9. They're going to go for it. That's what this team wants to do. It's what this team expects to do. This is what Mark Pope expects to do. He came in here, and he has made it clear since he stepped on that podium in Rupp, Kentucky is going to compete for national championships. That is the expectation. That is the goal every single year. Anything short of that is failure. That's what the social media team for Kentucky has also pushed. Getting these kids to say they understand the assignment. They know what is expected. They are going to compete for a national championship. They are pushing that onto the fan base, and I think the fan base is encouraging it. The offense is going to be stellar. Kentucky's going to shoot a ton of threes. They're going to run up and down the court. They're going to score a lot. That's what social media is pushing. They even put out a video recently that was just a montage of black and white Kentucky shooting three-pointers with some really nice string music to it. The goal, according to this staff, is 35 three-pointers a game. That seems almost unobtainable unless you just exclusively go out there and chuck from the perimeter like we have never seen in the history of this game. Obviously, we've seen things like this, and obviously there have probably been teams in the past that have either come close or broken that, but this would be something that we haven't seen in a while. It's not normal. 35 three-pointers attempted per game. Kentucky's expected to hit. Kentucky's expected to score. They're going to go for a title. They're going to score points. And the offense, I think even more so, is unstoppable when it gets hot, and they can outscore a ton of teams. The La Familia scrimmage, I think, is a great example of this. La Familia scored 76, or what was it? It was like 70, 79 maybe. Doesn't matter. Kentucky almost dropped 100 on them. Similar to last year, can you outscore your opponents? This team, it sounds like, based on what we've heard, based on what we've seen, based on what's been presented to us, they're going to be able to do that pretty consistently. They can outscore a lot of teams. That is the expectation that I have. What this social media team and what this program is trying to push to us is that this is another year of successful Kentucky basketball. That's what's being told to us. I think that adds on to the urgency. So what are all of these things? What are all of these things that we're being told? Are they realistic? Is it possible? Are they almost a guarantee to happen? Where do we fall on these things? And if we can answer that question, I think we can also really sort of define year one success, the urgency of it, and whether or not we are currently, kind of in a spot right now where we can look and say, hey, the things being presented and told to us are correct, and these are the things that would be the baseline as far as wins, as far as success. And so how urgent are those things? We'll get into that in just a little bit. Before I do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. I love sports, and I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as we're kind of getting into the NFL preseason right now, there's not a ton of sports going on. We get fewer games. Sports aren't sportsing like we want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I am in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. That is FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, continuing along here on the Friday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Again, I really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would greatly appreciate it if you did so. So we're answering the question today, how urgent is year one success for Mark Pope and this staff? Well, they've made it pretty clear that their bar is extremely high for a variety of reasons. National title, great offense, unstoppable team at times. How realistic are all of those goals? Sure, the staff can have them. They can present those things to us. But are they really within the realm of possibility? Let's start there with the national title. If you've listened to this program for any amount of time that I've been doing it, which we're coming up on 3 years now, we're a couple of months away from 3 years of me doing Locked On Kentucky, I've continued to beat the horse to death when it comes to the NCAA tournament. It is hard to win a title. And I understand that UConn just went back to back. It is very difficult, even with a program like UConn, with a program like Kentucky, with a program like North Carolina, Duke, UCLA, what have you. It is very tough to win a title because of the way that the NCAA tournament is structured. I believe SB Nation, a few years ago, John Boyce did a great video on the tournament, and it stands today. The NCAA tournament is a losing machine. If you're not a part of the Blue Bloods, you have no chance of winning. And if you are a part of the Blue Bloods, you have a very small chance of winning. Kentucky making a run at national title number 9 is possible. Any team can make a run in the NCAA tournament. We've seen dozens of Cinderella stories over the past couple of months, a couple of years unfold. It's been we have seen some of the most chaotic tournaments over these past couple of March Madness runs, right? We've seen a lot of chaos. Anything can happen. Kentucky could make a run. George Mason could make a run. FDU could make a run. Anybody could make a run. But to actually get to the final game and to win it is very tough. And to do that with a roster that you threw together, in a sense, in a month and a half. Sure, these all may be guys that you wanted at each position. But these are guys you had to go and get out of necessity. These were the easiest things available to you. Your resources did not allow you to do more than what you got. And what you got, honestly, if you had more time and you had more resources, you had a whole cycle, you would have done things a little bit differently with your roster. Sure, they may be great for what you want to do individually, and they may end up being really good. Who knows? But if we're just looking at probabilities, if we're just looking at what's more likely historically, what's kind of been the trend, it's very tough to win a national title in your first year. Now, Kentucky's had a coach do it recently, like within the last 25, 30 years or so. But the game has evolved. The game has changed, and it is hard to win a title. It's very difficult, guys. I would love to see Kentucky in the national championship game. I'm going to root for them to get there. I hope they beat every single team on their schedule, and I hope they beat them by 90. But I think a realistic fan would realize that is a very difficult task. And I think an unrealistic expectation in year one. Pope can have it. Awesome. Support him all the way. But I personally don't. I don't think that it's realistic for the fan base to sit here and say Kentucky's going to win the national championship this season, or they're going to be right there at the very end. I think that's subject to change if we see the team and we see them perform. If they blow Duke out, if they run through their non-con slate, they're undefeated. It's undefeated heading into SEC play. My tune would completely change, because then we would have seen the product and we would have seen them prove on the court, hey, they're capable of doing that. As of right now, we don't know. Like I said at the start of the show, we don't know. But if I'm leaning one way or another, that's not my expectation. That's not year one success for me. My bar's a little lower. 35 three-pointers a game. If you've watched the show, again, for any amount of time, you know I'm very numbers heavy when it comes to talking about offensive and defensive efficiency, production, how a team operates, their tempo, their tendencies. 35 three-pointers a game is also they can get in the realm of that. I would be surprised if they took 35 a game. I would be surprised if Kentucky averages 35 3-pointers attempted per game or more. I'll go on the record and say that. I think that they could absolutely get close. But 35 is a lot. And they can commit to that goal. I just don't know how realistic it is, especially once you get in game. That's not my expectation. The number that they've set, 35 threes a game, I don't think that determines whether or not they can be good this year. Now, I think it'll play a factor into it for sure, but that doesn't determine whether or not I think they're going to be good. And also, it doesn't really, it does not fit in my year one success. It's not on my list, so it's not very urgent for me. The offense being unstoppable when it gets hot and them outscoring teams, I'm going to be honest, there's a lot of defensive products on this team. There's a lot of defensive players on this team that are good on that side of the ball. But what's been the calling card since Pope got here? What was his calling card at BYU? Elite offense. Great offensive mind. Great offensive personnel. It all clicks. It all runs at a speed that you can't handle. We're raining threes. We're scoring points. We're making it happen. I expect Kentucky to get a majority of their wins this season by just simply outscoring their opponent. Now, I don't think Kentucky's going to play in a bunch of shootouts, except for maybe some high-profile SEC games. Alabama, I'm looking at you. Auburn, Arkansas, maybe I'm looking at you as well. So I do expect this offense to be very good. I think you can add that to your list of year one success requirements, right? And we're gonna define it completely year one success in a minute, and we'll answer the question: how urgent are these things? But I think you can add that to the list. The offense being one of the best in the country. I think Kentucky should be. I think they should be elite on that side of the ball. They've brought in the players on paper that can do it, that can score. They got a coach that can absolutely put these guys in position to succeed. They should be able to play very well on that side of the ball. So I think that that's acceptable. I think the national title is too high of a bar, I think, for the entire fan base to set. It's too high of a bar. 35 threes a game, I think, is also just slightly too high of a bar. And frankly, I don't think this fan base really cares if Kentucky takes 35 threes a game. I know the staff will. And if I were on that coaching staff, I would take it seriously. Because again, numbers guy, trying to, where we are maximizing efficiency here. So those are the three major things that have caught my attention this offseason versus reality. So let's define wins, losses, where they are in the SEC, what they do in the season outside of what they do on the court. Let's get all of that and answer the question in just a moment. Before I do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has been the place to go for me when it comes to getting Major League Baseball tickets this summer. I actually just got some more to go see the Braves later on this year. It is the perfect place and is the only place you should go if you want to check out MLB tickets. Also, tickets for all kinds of sporting events. Basketball, baseball, football's coming up. I'm going to definitely use Game Time for college football this season. You can also get all kinds of events outside of sports, concerts, comedy, theater. I've got a couple of concerts coming up this fall. I use Game Time. Last-minute tickets, killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and then their lowest price guarantee. They take all of the guesswork out of buying your tickets. And with MLB tickets, prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. Absolutely incredible app. You get in, you get out. There's no hidden fees. You get to look at the photos from your seat. They're even better in person. All kinds of events. It's not just a sports tickets app. You can take the guesswork out of buying your Major League Baseball tickets or any tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, wrapping up the Friday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you again. I appreciate you guys checking out the show. Let's talk here, to wrap up the show, about defining success. The question, how urgent is year one success? Well, here is how I would define it. First of all, like I mentioned earlier, I think the offense should carry the weight for this team. When you watch this team, the offense should be good. It should be elite. You have way too many things working for you on that side of the ball for it to be considered a failure minus injury. If injury happens, all of this is thrown out of the window. And knock on wood, hopefully Kentucky doesn't have any players get hurt. And if they do, they're able to recover and they're able to be there when it matters. Hopefully nobody gets hurt. The offense, the most basic way to say it, and I've said this a few times, Kentucky's they've got 7 players that can shoot the ever-loving lights out of the basketball. They've got 7 high-quality shooters on their roster. And through the portal, they brought in not only the best catch-and-shoot player in the country, Kobe Brea, and the 100th percentile of catch-and-shoot players, but they also brought in the second best catch-and-shoot player in Kirk Carissa, who is in the 99th percentile of catch-and-shoot players. Both those statistics via synergy, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a huge thing this offseason. Kentucky brought in shooters. Otega Owe can hit it from beyond the arc. Jackson Robinson, absolutely. Andrew Carr, he's got a good three-point percentage. Ainsley Almanor carried the load at FDU, shooting threes. Absolutely. Let's go. You've got guys up and down this roster that are not just good, they're very good. So the offense, with an offensive-minded coach, with a coach that made his name known at BYU because of his video game-like offense. We talked with Jordan Sperber of Hoops Insight, or excuse me, not Hoops Insight, Hoops Vision 68, excuse me, who's now on the staff actually at Mississippi State. We talked to him earlier this year about Kentucky's video game-like offense, their sets, their statistics, how they may fare in the SEC. The expectation is for them to be good. Year one success is urgent if the success is about Kentucky on offense, if the success is scoring on offense. I expect Kentucky to do that. Year one success is urgent if it means Kentucky being a top 6 team in the SEC. This is pretty simple. The Wildcats still managed to win the regular season with Coach Cal. They should be able to do the same with Mark Pope. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, it matters what you do in the postseason. And yes, it does. Absolutely, it does. But the Wildcats shouldn't look like a bottom half team in this league on the court when they're playing conference opponents. Kentucky, the year one success is urgent if they are top 6 or 6 or higher, I should say. Anything underneath that, we've got a problem. That's not success. It was urgent for you to meet that qualification in year one. I know. The SEC is tough this year. It's been like that for the past few years. It's going to be really, really hard this year. Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Arkansas apparently is everybody. Coach Cal went there, and everybody thinks they're going to be incredible. They may be incredible. Who knows? Texas A&M, people think are going to be great. Again, LSU, Georgia, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, South Carolina, even the teams in the bottom half of this league are competent at the very least. Now, teams like Georgia, teams like LSU, I've not said great things about, but you don't look at them and say they're terrible. You look at them and say, actually, for where they are in the conference, they're not bad, and any team can get you on the road. Any team can get you on the road in this league. You used to not be able to say that. And now you do. Florida is a team that I have praised, and I think they could really, really break out this year. There are enough teams that could be at the top where it's kind of tough to sit here and say, hey, Kentucky's going to be a top 4-5 team in this league. Top 6. That's where I put it. I understand the difficulties. Hey, if the staff says we want to make a run at the national title, I can sit here and say, hey, they should be a top 16 team in the SEC. I don't think that is a crazy expectation. Year 1 success is urgent if it is defined by being a good team in this league. Year 1 success is urgent if it means Kentucky getting at least 1 win in the NCAA tournament. At least 1. Nothing less. Kentucky needs at least 1 victory. If you don't get to the round of 32, we've got a problem. And somebody may say, well, crazy things can happen in one game. And yes, the NCAA tournament as a whole is crazy. You notice what I said whenever I was talking about the tournament earlier? It's difficult to win. It's not difficult to win one game. It's difficult to win the entire thing. If you come into this, and let's say Kentucky's a top 6 team in the SEC, right? Let's say for my money's worth, they should be top 4-3. They should get a double bye. Kentucky should be a top 5 seed. If you are a 5 seed or higher, even if you're a 6 seed, let's say they're a 6 for funsies, just like BYU was a season ago, you don't get upset by a seed ranked 11th or lower in the first round. That does not happen, especially with this team of seniors. They will have proven at that point to be too good to let that happen in their first game. And I think Mark Pope is going to put a ton of emphasis with these kids on winning those games. I think Kentucky's going to throw not actually throw punches. I think they're going to go out there and throw haymakers in the tournament when they get there. They're going to be desperate to win, I think. Year 1 success is urgent if it is defined by getting at least 1 tournament win. If they can get 2, that's awesome. Congratulations. You've not had a run like that since 2019. You have 1 tournament win since 2019. Just get 1. That's all I'm saying. And then finally, year 1 success is urgent if it is defined by picking up at least 2 recruits during the season. And I should have said from right now, August 9th, 2024, until the end of April. 2. You need at least 2. Why do I say 2? Well, obviously, I think Kentucky can get more than that for sure. But look at the pieces coming back next year. And y'all can correct me if I miss one. Travis Perry, if everybody doesn't transfer. Travis Perry, Colin Chandler, Otega Owe, Brandon Garrison, and I know I'm missing one. Why am I missing one? I'm completely blanking on it. Anyway, you have to be able to get at least 2 players added to your roster through recruiting, preferably high-profile guys. So you can have at least a 6-man, 7-man group to start to kind of build off of. And then you can highlight it with additions through the portal. You can round it out with additions through the portal instead of having to, once again, for a second year in a row, just jump right into it and pull out any guy you can find, which is not necessarily what Kentucky did this year, but they kind of had to do that to an extent. You don't need that a second year in a row. It's not a way to sustainably build a program. You need to be able to get guys in that you can develop. That are not one and dones. I want to be clear. We're not going to get 5 stars for them to come in, come out, and that be it. Bob's your uncle. It's not. That's not what you're building your program off of. It's a blend. It's a blend of both. if expectations for success are anything beyond the things I mentioned, the offense carrying the load, just on the eye test, you can talk numbers, you can talk eye test, whatever have you. The offense carrying the load for a successful team, a team that finishes top 6 in the SEC, that gets one tournament win and gets at least 2 recruits during the season. If expectations for success are anything beyond this, sure, we can talk about it. We can discuss whether or not it's actually urgent. But I think that is a very fair baseline. Anything past this is not necessarily urgent. It's just wanted. It's not needed. I think those are fair requirements. Let me know what you think in the comments below. How urgent is year 1 success for Mark Pope? How would you define it in your eyes? All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hey, you can follow the show on Twitter on Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at @LanceDawe_, and you can follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all on Monday for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.